Hey everyone, this is Leanne from Of Love and Shiplap and the founder of SubThat Tutorials and More. Please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you never miss out on any new videos, and check the video description for a link to the SubThat Learning Library app. Inside of our mobile/web app, you can access all of our free tutorials and our neatly organized content libraries that are also very easy to search, and you can choose to upgrade for access to exclusive content and communities that help you navigate all parts of your business and give you the best chance to print, press, and profit. In this video, I am really excited to introduce you to the new Flux Beambox 2 laser engraver and cutter available through Johnson's Plastics Plus. Now, laser engravers and cutters have been making a pretty big splash in the craft business sphere over the last 12 to 18 months, and we've been seeing some really cool projects and ideas for things that you can do with a laser engraver and cutter. It's important to remember that all lasers are not created equally, and there are different types of lasers that then subsequently have different types of capabilities. If you've been thinking about adding a laser to your business, which I know a lot of you have because you've asked me questions about it in the months leading up to this, then you realize that there are different types of lasers. There's diode and fiber and UV, and in the case of this laser, a CO2 laser. Trying to decide which one is right for you ultimately is going to come down to what you want to be able to do and what's also within like your space requirements. A CO2 laser is one of the better options, probably one of the best options for craft businesses, in my opinion, on the market, because it kind of gives you the best of everything. You get a powerful laser, but not one that is like so industrial and big and that you're not going to have room for and maybe can't even accommodate the power needs for. And you get the most versatility because you can cut and engrave a wide variety of materials, including different types of wood and rubber and metal and fabric and cardboard and acrylic, which combined with sublimation or white toner is really going to give you a lot of potential for unique things that you can create. So the Flux Beambox 2 is a 55-watt CO2 laser, and this thing is pretty sizable. If you missed out on my Facebook story, I did show that I had built this whole workbench for it, and the laser itself is 40 inches roughly by 29 inches. So it's pretty sizable. I did build a whole workbench for it, which you'll get to see in just a minute when I start showing you the laser itself. And the laser needs its own dedicated breaker. So those are two things that you really need to know if you're planning on going for this model. It needs a dedicated 20 amp breaker. I think this is important because a lot of times people don't pay attention to that kind of thing, and then they go and purchase a piece of equipment and find out that their home can't accommodate it. It is important when you have something that draws a lot of power that you make sure you meet the electrical requirements for it, just for the safety of your home. You never want to be putting more on your electrical lines than they are equipped to handle. And not only is it a danger for fire and short circuiting, but it is also going to hinder the power and potential of your piece of equipment. So this is one of several pieces of equipment that we have that does require its own electrical breaker. The Fusion IQ, our heat press, also requires a dedicated breaker, as does the iColor 650 white toner printer. All three of those items all require their own dedicated 20 amp circuit breaker. So be aware that you are going to need to deal with that particular cost if you decide to go with this type of laser. But as I said, the versatility is really unmatched, especially for the price and the size. If you're looking for something that works well in a home office, then I definitely think this can be a potential product for you. Now, you guys know that I'm a really big advocate of making sure you're growing an intentional business and being intentional about the kinds of things that you invest your money in. I want you guys to be able to be successful, not just make cool stuff. It is really easy to see all the cool things on the market and just want to buy everything and anything because there's so much cool stuff. And I get it. Like, it is hard sometimes. Sometimes I see new printing equipment and new ideas and I'm like, man, I just want to make everything. And because I teach you guys, I do get to make everything, but can't make everything and have a strategic business. So who is this kind of laser going to be the best for? I would say anyone who is looking to, one, transition out of sublimation altogether, or two, is looking to be able to enhance sublimation with laser projects, whether they are completely laser projects that are just in the same niche, or using the two techniques, the two pieces of equipment together. Now, one of the things I think is really great is that the size of this allows you to cut a lot of popular items like door hangers. The workspace inside of the laser is 23.62 inches by 14.76 inches, which is pretty sizable for how much space you can laser engrave. And there's also the optional pass-through slot attachment, which gives you over a foot more additional space, meaning that you can laser cut and engrave 24 inches by 24 inches roughly. So that's a lot of potential. When I think about the things that I love to use the most, door hangers is one of the first things that comes to my mind. Also things like Christmas ornaments. If you guys have taken our original Affinity masterclass or are going to be tuning into the new one that's coming out, then you know I teach you how to make all kinds of clip art that you can then use for your own business. And some of those items would make really great door hangers and ornaments and keychains and things like that. So being able to cut that stuff on demand for yourself out of sublimation MDF, where you can cut it on a laser and then you can go ahead and press it with your sublimation printer and your heat press, is amazing. It definitely helps you save some money on constantly having to order things and get that outsourced. And like that alone is one of the coolest possibilities. But that's not even the tip of the iceberg of what this laser engraver and cutter can do. So first, it has the potential to cut a variety of materials, mostly woods and acrylic, up to a 1/2 inch thick. There are different thicknesses depending on if you're using regular power or max power. And that's just things that you have to pay attention to as you are determining what you're going to work on. But then you have the option to engrave a lot more materials. So not only can you engrave wood and acrylic, but you can also do glass and different types of metal. Powder coated metals are going to be a great option for a laser engraver and cutter. One thing that you can't do is actually like do that embossing engraving of metals. So just be aware that that requires a fiber laser if that was something that was on your mind. But you can still do different types of etching on different types of metal materials. There's a special spray that you can get, which I did order some. It's called CerMark, and you can spray that on metals so that you are able to engrave them and it leaves that behind and it's bonded and it's permanent. So that's a really great option to be able to make something pop and look really professional on different types of metal. You can also do acrylic and cardboard, glass, if I didn't say glass. And with the rotary attachments, you can do all sorts of different types of cups and cylindrical objects. So a lot of versatility packed all in one device. Oh, and slate. I almost forgot to mention slate and ceramic are items, slate, ceramic, and cork, items that you guys absolutely love and love to be able to print. So like I said, ton of versatility. The number of projects that I've already started planning with this laser is very long. We're going to have a lot of really exciting laser projects coming forward, especially because I want you guys to think outside the box. I don't want you guys to just be adding little woodcuts to your business. Not because those aren't fun, they are fun, but if they're not within your niche, they're probably not going to be the best option. But the potential for everything else that you can do with this is amazing. I am already thinking about projects like doing neon signs where you can cut the acrylic and then you can attach the neon wire and create custom neon signs. That is a huge market. And if you are someone who does anything that relates to parties, like party accessories and favors and decorations and stuff, that's great for that. If you do anything that's for celebration moments like graduation and weddings, again, another product that's great for that. And one of the things I'm most excited to do is take the idea of intarsia wood design. So if you don't know what intarsia is, it's where you cut wood with a scroll saw and you like piece them together and you round out all the edges and then you paint them, or sometimes you just use different types of wood so they have natural tones and it creates like you can do just beautiful things with it. One of the downfalls of a scroll saw though is that they're a little tricky to navigate. Like I'm not terrible at one. It's been a while since I've used one. But they take a little bit of handling. And I know we have a lot of older members who don't necessarily have great hand mobility. So something like a laser actually allows you to capitalize on that kind of design without having to do that work that might be difficult on your hands. And then it's easy enough to sand your pieces. So we're gonna be doing projects like that. And I'm excited just for other things like doing different types of acrylic cuts, like those book page holder things and dog poop bag holders. I mean, I could go on forever about all the things that you can do with this laser. I hope you guys are as excited as I am to get to know it. So just a couple of other things I want to tell you about it. One, I know someone will ask this, what is the software like? So it comes with Beam Studio, which is the software for the laser. Pretty easy to navigate, very user-friendly. It is compatible with pretty much all the major programs. You know, our choice program is Affinity Designer. It is compatible with that, as well as Photoshop, Illustrator, Corel Draw, and also Lightburn. Lightburn is a popular program as well that people like to use, especially for doing photos. If you're someone who wants to do engraving and etching of photos, you want to be using something like Lightburn. So a lot of different softwares that you can use in conjunction with Beam Studio for this. And you can even print this stuff from your mobile phone or tablet. You don't necessarily have to have a laptop to do it. The software is just really that versatile. This particular laser model has a bunch of new features that the previous model didn't have and the other models from Flux don't have. For example, it has 3 times the engraving speed, making it one of the fastest. It's 55 watts, which is a big power draw, which gives it good speed. It has a new built-in autofocus and smart alignment function, which just makes it so much easier for you to get your projects going. You can literally just put your substrate inside, let it do the autofocus, align it on the computer, and send it off to do its laser cutting or engraving, and you are good to go. In terms of what you should know, besides the fact that you're going to need a pretty sizable workbench, I could not find any type of utility workbench that was big enough for this, so I did build one just very easily out of 2x4 and a sheet of plywood. That was all I used for it. Pretty straightforward. I don't have building plans, I'm sorry. I just kind of winged it. So you are going to need a sizable workbench. You are going to need a dedicated 20 amp breaker, and you're going to need a good placement for it. So I'll show you guys when we set this up. It does require a ventilation space, and that's for all of your fume extraction through the hose to get out. You don't want the dust collecting inside the laser, and you don't want the fumes collecting in your home. So it does need to be near a window unless you choose to purchase the optional air purifying system, which you can get that. That is a separate item from the laser itself. So I think that kind of covers all of the things that you absolutely need to know. Now I want to show you guys how to set this up, and we're going to get our first laser engraving and cutting projects together. As I said, we have many more to come. I am so excited for this. So let's go ahead and walk through the setup process in that first laser cutting for our Flux Beambox 2 laser, available through Johnson's Plastics Plus.
Here's a look at our Flux Beambox 2 55 watt CO2 laser. As I mentioned, this is a pretty sizable piece of equipment. It's approximately 40 inches wide by 29 inches deep and 13 inches tall. It's great for a home office provided you do have enough space for it. Now, I went ahead and built a workbench for this because there wasn't really anything that was sizable enough, and I'm just going to back up so you can see that. I built this workbench. It took me about a day. You can see that it fits it pretty perfectly. I built this with 2x4s and 1 sheet of furniture grade plywood for the shelves. I squared the 2x4s and framed them out, and then just painted it all blue. This is designed to fit this laser, and I did use some caster wheels on the bottom that are rated for 200 pounds each. Now, I don't have any building plans, but if you are a little bit handy or know someone who's handy, this is pretty easy to duplicate. I intentionally made sure there is plenty of space for all of our add-on accessories and our materials. So let's go ahead and zoom in and give you a look at the front of this laser. So this is our bed area where we're going to do all of our laser engraving and all of our fun projects. This is our main digital touchscreen and our power button. The first step is going to be to open the cover and take out everything that is inside. So once we open the cover, you're going to see that there is an accessory box. This is going to be the things that we need to set up our laser. I'm going to go ahead and pull that right on out, carefully of course, and we'll look inside of that in just a minute. We are also going to want to remove all of this foam, but be sure to keep this foam in event that you need to ever ship your laser for repair or other purposes in the future. You always want to retain the original packing materials. I'm just going to pull our laser bar forward and grab that. There we go. So what you're looking at right now is the bed of our laser. That metal grate is what's referred to as the honeycomb, and any little pieces of debris from your laser cuts are going to come down underneath it. So that is removable, so you can clean that whenever you need to. Now we're going to go ahead and have a look at that accessory box so that we can get started with setting up our Flux Beambox laser. I'm just going to push this back so that we're ready to go. I have set up our accessory box over here on my desk. Now we're going to open this up and it should have everything that we need to get our laser started. We're going to get that styrofoam out of the way, and first thing I'm going to grab is this little card. Now this little card is going to show you that your equipment has been tested, and that little piece of wood is what has been cut to prove that everything is working correctly with your piece of equipment. Most pieces of equipment do come with something like this, and they're just like a nice thing to have to know that it was working before it was shipped. Next we have a little thank you card and some test paper and our quick start guide / user manual. Now this does look pretty hefty, but it's only because it's in about 19 languages. The actual setup is just a couple of pages. You can keep that on hand or you can check the internet instructions. This paper is for testing our camera alignment, and then we have this piece of wood for doing our first test project. Now there's an assortment of little Allen wrenches that are shoved down in here in the styrofoam. They're a little hard to see, but we're going to need these for different parts of our laser to be able to unscrew the different screws or tighten things. We also have some lubrication oil, some double-sided tape, and our Wi-Fi adapter. Now there are 2 levels here, so we're going to take all this stuff out and set it on the side so we can come back to it. In the inside here, we have just the rest of the parts that we need for setup. So as you can see, there is our ventilation hose, which is going to be the first thing we set up. There's our power cable. There is a printer cable if you need that, if you want to hardline it. This is Wi-Fi compatible, so that's just an option. We have our funnel. You are going to need some distilled water to go with that funnel to fill our laser tube. Now our first step is going to be to set up our vent hose, which again is this in the back. We're going to be attaching this to the back of our laser and vent it out of the window. Here we are at the back of our laser, and we're going to be removing that clamp and silicone cover that you see right there on the back. That's where we're going to be attaching our hose. So you're going to need just a flathead screwdriver, or a Phillips head would work as well. And we're going to loosen up this hose clamp, slide it off. We're still going to need this, so just keep that aside, but the silicone cover you can toss in your accessory box. Now with your hose clamp, you're going to be looking at the bigger end of the hose. So you can see we've got like a smaller end. That one's going to go out the window. The bigger end is what we attach to the back. So take your hose clamp and just kind of snap it on, get it around that. This is always a challenge to do around the camera, but there you go. All right, so you're going to slide this on, and you want to make sure that you have it on completely. Kind of feel underneath the bottom and make sure it's fully snapped on. There we go. All right, now that it's nice and snapped on, we are going to tighten that clamp back up just so it's nice and secure. Trying to make sure it is centered around that band. I don't want to have it too far in and have it pinching the hose. Just want to make sure it's as secure as we can get it. It feels a little tight, but I'm going to tighten it just a little bit more to be sure. All right, now we got no wiggle. So we can extend this hose however much you need to. We're going to be extending it out the window. You can also choose to get an indoor fume extractor if you don't have any option that's close to the window, or if you don't want to put something vented out the window. That's always an option as well. I pulled this out a little bit more than I intended on, so I'm trying to just kind of squeeze it back in. I guess it probably doesn't matter because it's going to be moved anyways as we're using our laser, but you get the gist. So we're going to be venting this out the window. I did get some additional foam to put there, and I'm going to kind of cut a circle out of the foam. So I've talked about this air conditioner before. It's like a U-shaped air conditioner. So the condenser is outside, and you can see like the window comes all the way down other than that little foam spot. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is add in my additional foam and then trace around this nozzle and just cut it out. I got the foam on Amazon. It's specifically designed for this particular air conditioner. So that was just like an easy fix here. Now you can of course do any method for this, use cardboard, whatever works for you, but because of this air conditioner, this is what I'm going to do. So I need to roll the window shade all the way up, and then I'm going to open up the window here and kind of try and slide that foam in to the best of my ability, and then trace it with a Sharpie around that hose end. I was really struggling to get this situated with the camera in the way, trying to navigate the hose, the foam, the window. It was just a lot, but you can see where we ended here. So I cut out my foam. It's a little bit janky, but I added in some of that thin, like soft black foam and did the edges and filled in some space, just trying to make sure I've got a good, nice, closed up space. We don't want that hot air coming in, especially down here in southeastern North Carolina. As I mentioned, this is just one option. You can do the window fume extraction, but you can also choose one of those indoor models that are available. Flux has one available that you can get to go with their equipment. So that is an add-on additional purchase, but it is an option that is available to you. So now that we've got this situated, let's go ahead and do the next step, which is just to plug in our laser. You'll see that we have our master power switch and our outlet. We're going to go ahead and plug in that power cord to it. And we can flip that switch on to be ready to move into the next step. I do want to kind of push this laser back where it needs to go, but we also have the regular power button and then the emergency stop button. So you have 3 different power buttons on here. We also have some USB ports that we can plug things into, and our printer cable port as well, or computer cable port. I'm going to go ahead and plug in our Wi-Fi antenna. Actually, we'll stick it in the top. There we go. And I think this will rotate. All right. That is good to go. I've got you guys overhead now so you can see down in, but we're going to flip that main power switch that I had just showed you and then hold down our power button until we see things start to light up. Now it's going to take 1 to 2 minutes for this to fully warm up, but then we're going to be paying attention to our touch screen, and it's going to give us our instructions to walk us through the rest of the setup process and get us to that first official laser cut and engraving, whatever we decide to do first. So I'm just going to give this a minute. We should see that screen. There it is. The screen is starting to come on. And the prompts on this are pretty straightforward. We're starting off with some safety warnings, just reminding us that we always want to take precautions with our laser. You'll see that every time that you start up. It's going to give us an option to pass this in just a second. I think the warnings and stuff are a little hard to see on the overhead camera, but it's really just talking about making sure that we keep our inner bed area cleaned from debris. We want to make sure that we're always taking necessary safety precautions when using this laser. So now it's giving me the option to move on to our next steps here. So let's go ahead and click through and we'll follow the prompts. First up is to select our language. Then we've got safety precautions once again. And now it's time for our machine startup test. So our first task is going to be to fill the water tank. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Start. And we can see it's just telling us to unscrew the tank and add the water in the designated reservoir. So if you were wondering what the funnel was for, it is for this. Let's go ahead and move the laser out so we can access that. So it does come with the special little wrench for this, thankfully. We're gonna stick this in here and go ahead and unscrew these 4 little screws. They are very small and I don't necessarily love that, but there we go. I got it hooked. Let's go ahead and get these 4 screws undone. What you hear in the background is the laser attempting to pull that water in and test for the flow rate. The water is used to help cool the tube, so you'll kind of see it in action here once we get this going and actually fill it up. It's just taking me a minute to get these screws undone, so bear with me. I know I don't normally do in-depth setup videos like this, but it's because most of the other things we've had don't actually have in-depth setup. So this is a different experience for me and for us. It's definitely been kind of cool seeing all these different parts that go into this laser, and I'm really excited to see what it can do. Now this is my first experience with a laser, at least one that I'm actually using myself. Our last little screw is giving me a little trouble here. There we go. Now we still have to also unscrew this other screw. Kind of set you guys up there. There we go. You can see just that one screw in there, that's for the back cover. So you're going to need a Phillips head screwdriver for this. And this will help you expose that tube, and we'll be able to see the water going through this. There we go. So there is our laser tube and our cooling. This is water cooled. So what you'll do is end up changing out this water every couple of months and being sure to check it regularly. So we just need to now unscrew that little screw that you can see there on the top. It comes with this little wrench to do this. I think that a quarter would work better, but I'm not sure where one is at the moment. So we're gonna muscle through with this little wrench. There we go. Alright, it's getting easier now that I got it loosened up. I think it's going to pop right up here in a second. There we go. So we can pull that off and our funnel can stick down in there so that we can fill up our little tank with water. Now again, you do need to use distilled water. You don't want to be using any other type of water because it can have minerals and stuff in it that can damage your machine. there's our little water reservoir tank. We want it to ultimately be about 80% full, so that's what we're focused on. I've just got some distilled water from my local Food Lion. You're going to need 400 milliliters. I didn't have anything to really measure 400 milliliters with because my measuring cups are all have the labels dissolved. So we're just going to kind of eyeball it. Now you're going to fill it up and you're going to notice it goes down each time. We're going to have to fill it up a couple of times and let it go down each time. It's going to start filtering through this tube. So if you guys just kind of watch this as we're doing this here, kind of boring, but this is just part of the setup process. Again, our goal is to have that reservoir tank steady at about 80%. You don't want to have it less than 50% at any point in time. We can see it starting to go through the hose there. See where the blue is. Add just a little bit more here. It's really starting to flow, but I think it is going to go down just from what I read in the instructions. I'm going to take my funnel out. And I'll screw my little cap back in to kind of close the system and see what happens after that. So you can see it is starting to go down, which is kind of what I anticipated. I'm going to give it just a minute here and then we'll pop that screw back off, that cap cover off, and we'll add in some more water. So yeah, we can see the water's gone down quite a bit, so we're going to need to add some more in. So we're just loosening that cap up once again. I'm going to add some more water. I don't want to add too much, again, because I don't have a measuring cup, so I'm just kind of adding a little bit at a time. I think that might have been all that we need. We're going to kind of watch it for a second here and see if it goes down again. The instructions on the screen do say that it's going to go down a couple of times before it's officially ready. So we'll see how it looks here in just a moment. It does look like we're pretty good, so I'm going to tighten this up. And yeah, I mean, I think we're ready. It looks pretty good. Now you'll know you're good when you look at the front screen there and it is showing that the water speed is being tested. Then it's going to give you the option to proceed forward. So before we do that, we just want to screw all of our screws back in. I got the back one here for that main cover, and then I want to put that cover panel back on that was over the water tank. With the little tiny screws. Our next step is just to download the software from the Flux website. You want to choose the one that's appropriate for your specific computer. So I'm going to save that and we'll give that a minute to download. It looks like we are about done with the download. I'm going to go down to my File Explorer and just open that up from here. Right click, I like to choose Run as Administrator. Go ahead and select our install space. Seems like it's loading pretty quickly, so that's always a positive sign. Okay, so we'll go ahead and hit finish, and it should open up our software for us. Okay, select our language, and then I'm going to go ahead and create my Flux account. Pretty straightforward. I'll just use my that email here and come up with a password that you can remember. Well, that I can remember. I don't know about you guys, but I really hate those auto password recommendations. All right, click join us. And it looks like there's going to be a code that we have to get from our email. So once you're logged in, you're just going to select your laser type. In this case, we've got our beam box. I'm going to choose to connect via Wi-Fi. I already set this up on the computer screen, so now I just need the IP address. It shows right here where to find it, so I'm just going to pop over and grab that really quick. So go ahead and click on that Start Creating, and it's going to open up Beam Studio. We've got a little debug message. We're going to click Yes. And then it's asking us to calibrate the camera. So it's going to be our first step to make sure everything is reading properly. It tells us right here we're going to go to Menu, Machine, and select Calibrate Camera. This is going to be done on that touch screen on the laser. Let's see what happens once we hit the yes button here, because I'm sure that there's a little bit more instructions for us to follow. Okay, it's telling us to put a piece of letter size paper into the laser and select to start engrave. That's pretty easy. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're just going to go ahead and slide a letter size piece of paper in here. You could use some of that double-sided tape if you wanted to in this step. I'm now just going to adjust the laser so that it's over top of that, and it will actually register it. Next it says to autofocus, so we're going to push down this little lever on the side. This is our autofocus stand. We're going to select that autofocus option. Might be a little hard to tell, but the bed kind of moved up and down to make sure everything was adjusted. Now we just need to move that back up so that we're ready to go. And then close our laser, and now we can hit that Start Engrave button on the computer. So again, this is for the camera calibration. It's just putting little dots on the page as far as I can tell. Now it looks like it's scanning. That must have to do with the camera itself. And we'll switch this back over to the computer in just a second so we can go through the next steps. Okay, so it's just asking us to make sure that all the engraving points are aligned accordingly based on the red marker. So we're going to hit next, and this is going to take a picture. Okay, it looks like all of them are centered perfectly, so that's a good sign. That means that everything is ready to go. The camera is calibrated properly. We can retake the picture if we need to, manually adjust any markers. All of these look perfect, so I'm good. We're going to hit done. So it's going to ask us for the start tutorial. I'm going to click no for right now because I want to actually show you the Beam Studio interface. Beam Studio is a very beginner-friendly program. So if you are looking to be able to easily import, edit, or create files with a laser engraver and cutting machine, you're going to find that this program is just right for you. There's always the option to use other programs like Affinity Designer or Photoshop or Corel Draw or Lightburn if you're looking to do more in-depth design creation and editing work before you send something to a laser. But in terms of just having stuff that's already ready to go, like you're downloading files and you just want to create those projects, this is going to be perfect for you. The Start Help tutorial just kind of touches on the key steps that you will follow from start to finish to get that first laser cut. So we're going to do that in just a minute. But before that, I do actually want to talk to you about this interface so that you can see what you can do within it and how easy it is to navigate. I know that we have a lot of our audience who tends to get discouraged by new equipment because the software that comes with it can be difficult to learn, mostly because it just is new and different. And I want to assure you that with Beam Studio, it's not like that at all. So let's have a look at kind of what's going on here. First, we have our tools panel over here in the left sidebar. The first icon is our camera, which is the preview icon. When you select this, you are then going to be able to click and drag across your interface, and it is going to use that to create a snapshot of the inside of your laser. So whatever substrate you have put in there is going to appear on the screen, and this makes it really easy for you to be able to accurately size and organize whatever design you are trying to do. I think that this is really an outstanding function because it ensures that you have the best placement every time and optimal results, and of course avoids any mishaps with layers maybe being too close together or potentially not being centered where they need to be on your design. So great little tool there with the preview. This is my first laser, so this is probably something that is kind of standard with a lot of lasers, but for me, this is new. It reminds me a little bit of that, like a pick scan mat that Silhouette has, same kind of concept as that. Next, we have just your cursor, your standard selection tool, followed by your image tool. Now, this is going to open up your file explorer and give you the option to import some type of design. You could do an SVG or a DXF file, as well as a PNG. So in this case, I'm actually just going to open a PNG so I can show you some of the functions here. Now, you would probably use a PNG design if you wanted to do something like a photo, or if you just wanted to etch or engrave something like this design, which we're going to use this design for something here in a few minutes. But this particular design is meant for sublimation, so it's just a PNG. As you can see, it's pretty large. So I'm going to go ahead and shrink that on down so that it fills in our space a little bit more. Now, with every layer that you have within your studio, you're going to also have layer options. You'll notice this over in your layers panel on the right side of the screen. And when you have a layer selected, you'll also see this little slider menu right here in the top left. When you click on that, you're going to see a variety of options that you can play around with. Now, these will look a little bit different depending on which layer that you have, like what the layer type is. You'll always have these resizing and rotational and alignment tools available to you, plus your group and ungroup if you do have multiple layers. For curve layers, so those that are created with nodes and curves, you can take advantage of your Boolean operations right here. As you can see, those are not available with a PNG. For photos like this, you have this option to turn on or off the gradient settings, and you can adjust the threshold brightness through this slider. Now you might notice that this looks very similar to that trace function within Silhouette Studio. That's the first thing that this reminds me of. I know we have a lot of people who have come from vinyl crafting before, so you're going to notice that some of the tools are very similar to that. And that's because the core files are very much the same, so a lot of the functions are the same. So you can adjust that threshold brightness, and you'll notice that it fills in or subtracts out certain layers depending on what it's registering. Now, I'm not quite sure where that was set, but I'm just going to kind of put it in the middle there. We'll turn that gradient back on. You'll also notice that there is what's called depth mode. So if you have depth mode selected, what this is going to do is allow for a deeper engraving based on the depth of color within your design. So that's really cool if you want something that's a little bit more 3D like. It's not going to be super deep, but it is going to just kind of create some variances there for some texture in your engraving versus it being just a like solid engraving style. So we will definitely plan to do tutorials and play around with that. One of the things that I'm thinking about is rubber stamps. So I've got some fun project ideas ahead for us. I didn't mention this already, but just to be clear, what you see as the gray or the black, this is what is going to be etched out. So it is important to understand exactly what is going to be etched out when you do send this off to print. Now, all of your layers are going to have some of these additional actions. So with this particular layer, we have auto fit, which is going to automatically fit this to the substrate. We don't have one imported right now, so we're just seeing it as it is. You can replace that picture, which means the settings that you've already set and the size and everything will be replaced. If you need to remove background, you can do that. That's great for if you're doing some type of photo and you want to be able to remove the background. We have the Smart Nest function, which means that if you have multiple layers on your canvas, you will be able to have them all nest accordingly on your substrate, and this will help reduce waste. We always want to be mindful of material costs and not end up with too much waste because we didn't plan properly. This allows you to go ahead and do that. You then have this option to edit image, and you're going to find just some basic options here, like if you want to erase part of it, you can adjust your brush size, which is great if you're just trying to erase just certain parts of it. And then you can remove things based on certain colors as well. So this kind of reminds me of the select sample color function in Affinity Designer that I've showed in some of our Affinity tutorials, where if you just wanted to remove certain colors, you can do that as well. So we're not going to make any changes there. We're just going to go back. And it brings us back to our design. Now here there are some pretty basic photo editing tools: grading, sharpen, crop, bevel, invert. This is going to inverse your design so that you'll see like how this would look. Now we would want to put something in the background here. We would want to put like a black rectangle of some sort. Let me just try that so you can see it here. So we would take that and we would choose the fill, and then we would come to our layers. Oops, that one's behind it. We're going to undo that, sorry. We need to add a new layer, and then that layer is going to be, we're going to get rid of this one. We're going to come to that layer, and that layer is going to be our rectangle. And then we're going to come to those little options there. We're going to fill it, and then we're going to drag that below. So there we go. So now you can see that when we inverted it, what would now happen is that this blue part that we see, that's the part that would be etched out, and then this would be the part that would be raised. So if you were doing a rubber stamp, for example, that was meant to be like a logo, this would be exactly the kind of step that you would follow. So just kind of give you an idea with that, I'm going to go ahead and delete that layer, come back to this layer, and we're going to invert it back because it's a little dark. And then you also have the option to add an outline to that so that you have like an outline to cut around something. which is really great if you're using some sublimation designs and let's say you want to turn a design into a keychain, you can do that. Now, there are some really great sublimation laser approved materials, and I am really excited to do projects with those. Johnson's Plastics carries things like a sublimation and laser approved plastic, like a hard plastic. They also have acrylic and they also have some bamboo. So you have a couple of different options for materials that you can custom cut to fit designs. And this just makes your sublimation designs go so much further because you're able to cut that shape and then you're able to sublimate the cutout. You can also have more depth in some of your projects by incorporating both sublimation printing with a cut shape and additional engraving. I can't tell you how excited I am to explore all of those options. I already have some great materials on hand and we have a lot of fun in store for this year. But as you can tell, I'm very excited for just what we can do, but back to kind of just focusing on the basics here. You'll also notice that there is this option for array. So array is going to be a functionality that allows you to duplicate the layer so that you have multiple columns or rows of it. Like if you wanted to fill a whole space, and you can set the number of columns and rows that you want, as well as the number of or as the spacing interval. So that's another great functionality if you are looking to just kind of duplicate and have a bunch of things on one piece and you want to fill that space really well. And lastly, for your PNG image, you'll notice this rotary warped option, and that's going to be if you're using the rotary attachment and you're looking to do some type of drinkware, you are able to adjust it based on this. So you'll see that it's going to give you like an example, and you're going to add in your diameters for the two spaces, in this case your top and the bottom, and then also you'll add in your circumferences as well. So really easy to use warp function that allows you to do a variety of different types of drinkware items or conical shaped items in general. Again, I already have some really great ideas for this. I wish I could do everything right now, but we got to focus on what we're doing today. So that's for your picture mode. You can see your different options here. Really great functions to allow you to maximize what you can do within this program in terms of basic photo editing and adjustment, and using that for PNG layers. Like I said, like a lot of your sublimation designs that you might want to turn into something that is etched / engraved, or that you might want to be able to cut out and sublimate later. So I'm going to go ahead and just right click and delete that out of here and we'll move on. Next, there is your cloud function. So this is if you want to store any of the files you create in the cloud storage within the software. That's just entirely optional. If you guys have been around for a while, you know that I don't use cloud software that's built into programs. I really just prefer to have one cloud storage option. For me, that's OneDrive, but OneDrive, Google Drive, iCloud, Dropbox, those are all just some examples of cloud drives that you can use and save your files to. I personally prefer to use a universal cloud drive just because I like that knowing that everything is backed up and secure, so that even if I get new programs, everything is there and I don't have to like stress about it. So that's just something to keep in mind here as you are navigating the software and deciding how to use, different functions and whatnot. Next up, we have our text tool. Again, pretty straightforward. When you click on that, you're going to get your little eye, and then you can click and then adjust that to whatever size that you need. And if we select our layer editing menu, you're going to see the options that you have here. So we have our drop down for our different fonts. This is going to read your system fonts, so that's going to give you a lot of options right there, however many fonts that you might have. If you're like me, you take advantage of those bundles that Creative Fabrica has where you get, 50 or 100 different fonts, and I have thousands of fonts to choose from. And whenever I need a font, I had to Creative Fabrica and take advantage of that membership so that I can just kind of maximize my money spent there and be able to bring those on down. So if you don't have a Creative Fabrica membership, I do really recommend it. I use it mostly for fonts. fonts and digital papers up to now, but now I'm going to take advantage of the huge selection of laser files that are there. So I'm excited about that. So you can adjust your basic settings here with your font, including your line spacing, your letter spacing, and the height of your letters, how they're aligning. Then we have this fill option. So anything that is filled in is what is going to be lasered. If we were to send this right now, it would be cutting out the letters. That would be the setting here, or it would just be lasering the outer edge. It depends on the settings that we use. If we do the fill, now it's going to fill this all in. So if we wanted to have this letter completely filled in and cut, that would be what we would want to do, is have that fill in. So once again, you're going to see that auto fit function, and then we have convert to path. Now, if we do this, it's going to allow us to edit our letters, and we'll be able to adjust those nodes, move them closer together, delete them. We can kind of manipulate a lot of the basic design functions of navigating curves and nodes. We also have the option to weld text. This is important if you're using script text. Again, if you are coming from Silhouette Studio or Cricut Design Space, then you are very familiar with the importance of welding your text so that you can have a nice solid piece if you're trying to cut out or etch a single word. So we have the weld text option, and then once again, that smart nest and array. Next, we have our shapes option or elements option. It's got more than just shapes. So this is built into the software, and you're going to see a variety of different shapes. They've got some cool decorative ones that you can use, as frames for monograms and, these corner pieces. I love these if you're doing like different types of certificates or even like plaques, award signs, things like that. These can be really great for. They've got some frames, some banners, some speech bubbles, a lot of great stuff, some animal designs, and you'll notice that there are variations. So you have ones that can be solid filled in, and then you have ones that can just be an outline. There's a nice little selection of holiday and celebration themed ones, and then also some nature ones. So this is just built in fun stuff that you can play around with. In addition to those elements down here at the bottom, there's also a quick launch to the design market from Flux. Now, your laser does come with a gift card that you can use on this site, but there's also a bunch of free projects in here as well. There's also some tutorials that you can take advantage of as well. So you'll see there's free curriculum here underneath education and entertainment. But like, here's some puzzles, for example. So you can create different types of puzzles. If you paid attention to our top 25 products of 2025, one of the things that I emphasized was learning themed puzzles. So not just generic puzzles, but like stuff like this that is designed to be games, that's designed to be learning, things that are designed for educational purposes especially, are great projects to be selling right now, with homeschooling continuing to be on the rise. And having a laser engraver and cutter opens up a lot of cool possibilities, especially if you also have a sublimation printer, because you can turn these into full color without having to paint them, which just helps kind of improve your whole process and gives you a really great end result. So you can see some awesome puzzle ideas here. I've already been looking through this site. There are a lot of great projects. I probably spent too much time kind of looking through it and seeing everything that it had to offer, mostly because I'm just so excited about all the things you can create with the laser. I am totally obsessed with these clocks, by the way. This is just too much fun to me. So we're definitely going to be thinking about doing one of these. But back to Beam Studio. Next up, we just have some shapes. So this is very basic and straightforward. You have your rectangle, your circle, and your polygon. So you can literally just click on any of these and then click and drag. Now remember that when you click and drag something with one layer selected, it's going to be part of that layer. Like, you can still adjust it, but the settings that you choose are going to be all collective with that layer. So in this case, because these are together, whatever we would choose down here is going to apply to everything that we see here. Now, this is how you adjust your layers for cutting versus engraving. With your layer selected, you come down in the layers panel and you'll see these parameters. There are some presets set in here to make it easy for you, but you also may choose to adjust them based on what you realize you need for different types of wood materials. So in this case, if we wanted to do just wood engraving, we would select that. Now, if we wanted to have like the outer box here cutting and the text itself engraving, we would need to make them as two different layers. So I can come here to this box and I can just go ahead and delete that and then hit that plus sign and create that new layer and then select my rectangle and then drag it along. And now I can come down with that layer selected and I can say, okay, that's going to be wood cutting. We'll say it's about 1/4 of an inch. And I can come to layer 1 and I can say, okay, that's going to be wood engraving. And that kind of allows you to set your different parameters based on your layers. And you can, of course, click and drag and group them together as well to make life a little bit easier. Now, this does come with different presets already built in for your different layers, but you can also adjust them as necessary based on your own testing. Lastly, we have our line tool and our node tool. So with your line tool, you're really just going to be able to create a straight line and you can basically angle it however you want. Pretty straightforward here. You're going to see there's not a lot of functions that are going on here other than if you want to choose to offset it. And that might be important for some types of projects. I'm just showing you what you can do here. So there's not really much for us to do. I'm going to go ahead and delete that. The pen tool or node tool is going to allow you to freeform something. So we'll just kind of draw something really quick. And then with any of these nodes selected, you're able to edit it. You can turn it into a smooth node or a round node, a corner. So if I come here and I select round, we're going to get these little handlebars that we can then drag out. Oops. Come to that edit path. There we go. All right, so that we can then drag those out and we can kind of reshape this however you want. So if you've been practicing with your pen tool in Affinity Designer, then you're going to find this to be very familiar. So you can edit your different paths here. And if we go back to that layer, you'll also notice that there's the option to offset here as well, and then the simplify function, which is going to delete any unnecessary nodes. So just some different options there. So this is just your quick overview of this interface. It is very easy to navigate. It has the main tools that you need, and I think that that is really important. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this stuff off of here so that we can do that that startup tutorial that they have built in, and we'll walk through our first project, our first test with our Beambox 2 laser. So the first thing that we want to do is put in that piece of scrap wood. We're going to use that for our test project. I'm going to come over to our little computer screen here and move that laser over top of the wood, just like we did with the paper. And we're going to want to follow the autofocus steps that we had used before as well. So we need to push down that little peg, select the autofocus option on our screen. You can hear it adjusting, and then just move that peg back up. Close the laser, and we are ready to do our first test print. We can access that start tutorial by coming to Help and Show Start Tutorial. So first it's going to tell us to switch to preview mode. You can hear the laser going back to the start position in the background. When we see that little camera, we're going to click and drag over our workspace, and it's going to capture an image of the bed and show us that piece of wood that we had just put in the laser. So I definitely clicked and dragged more of the workspace than was necessary. But once that's done, we're going to hit the end preview option, which is our little back arrow. And now it's just walking us through some steps like I had said it would. So we'll click and drag to draw a rectangle. It's telling us to select a wood cutting setting. We can then add a new layer. It's telling us to draw a circle and click and drag to add that circle. We can come to that object panel, give it a fill. Then we can choose our cut settings for that as well. So I already kind of walked you through the software before. This is just that start tutorial. Now we would send it to print, but we're not going to use this cut and everything that's here. Instead, what we're going to do is print a materials test generator. So if you come to tools, you'll find your material test generator. We're going to do engrave, and I'm just going to leave everything as it is. The whole purpose of this is to give you a visual of the settings that your laser has with materials. And you can do this for literally every material. So I'm just going to kind of click and drag, resize it on down. It doesn't need to be very big. This is probably bigger than I need to make it, but this is our first cut. We want to see it all. So all of these little squares have different presets that are put into that group, and they're all going to use those presets when they print. Now it's giving us a little bit of a warning because this does use some high power settings. Once again, the whole point of that materials test is to give us an opportunity to see all of the different settings for that material, and then we can make educated choices when we're cutting other materials based off of that. So when I sent this off to the print option, or the send to the machine option, it is calculating the design. This one's going to take a minute because there is a lot going on. We'll see how long it'll take in just a minute. Looks like it's just about done calculating. Okay, so it says it's going to take it 27 minutes to do all of this. That's quite a while for something so detailed, but you're going to see that there's a lot with all these different settings. So we'll go ahead and click start. It's going to send that off to our laser. I've already joined the group, so we don't need that. And let's go ahead and watch our laser in action. All right, we are finally done with this. So I'm going to go ahead and pull it on out so we can have a look. You can see that it's a grid with speed and power, and it shows the different results. So pretty straightforward what a materials test is. We want to go ahead and get any debris out of the laser after the cut. These are just like little pieces that fell out of those letters. And we want to clean them out just so we don't have to worry about any potential fire hazards. Now the honeycomb does come out of the bottom of the laser very easily. You just lift it up to clean underneath it. You want to do that regularly, but for now I'm just getting these big pieces. Let's pop back over into Beam Studio with our little scrap material piece here and work on our next project. Our very first project with the Beambox 2 laser engraver and cutter was a success, and it gave us a good baseline for what to expect and what kind of settings to use when we are doing a wood engraving. Now, specifically, that was a very soft wood that came with the laser to be able to test on, and I'm actually going to use a softwood for our first project as well. The piece that came was probably about a quarter or an eighth of an inch thick. So it's relatively thin wood. And as you could see from those results, basically as low as 20% power still delivered solid cutting through the wood. So I think that that's a good frame of reference as we are going to try out something a little bit thicker. So I have a 1/4 inch piece of Luan plywood that I've just cut down into a 12 by 12. I saw this really cute bunny project, and I think that that's going to be our first great project and a chance to really see what this can do with some more detailed cuts and see what those results really look like. So I'm going to start by importing the file. I got this file off of Creative Fabrica. So we'll just come down here to this Easter Bunny laser cut. Now you can bring in your SVG version or the DXF version. Both are optional. I'm going to do the DXF because I want to be able to have two pieces to this design, and I'll show you what I'm talking about in just a second. So I'm going to click OK and OK. All right, so first we have our bunny here. So this is the file, and I want to adjust the size. That's going to be my first step. So let's come over to our layer options and see what that size is at. So it's currently at about 7 inches tall by 5.5 inches wide, roughly. That's actually perfect. I'm just kind of looking for something to play around with. So I think that this is good. What I want to do with this layer is first I want to duplicate it because I'm going to cut two pieces of this. The first one is just going to be the outline, and the other one is going to be this whole project. That way I can have them sandwiched together. Instead of it just being a cutout, I'll have one piece that's the cutout and one piece that's the backing. And I think that that's a really great way to add depth for something like this and make it be like a cute little home decor piece that you could choose to add to like a sign, or could just be used on its own. This is also the steps that you will follow if you were going to do something with sublimation where maybe one of the layers is going to be sublimated. So like if the back layer was going to be sublimated with full color and then the front layer was going to be just the wood shape cutout of like the flowers, you would do two layers. So I've got that, and I'm going to go ahead and duplicate it. And then with my second one here, we are going to right click on that. Nope, just kidding. We're going to come over to our layer settings and we're going to select disassemble. Now it's going to give us this little warning and we're going to select OK. And now what's going to happen is we're going to have the outline and then we're going to have the inner pieces. So we can just click and drag across our interface to select all of those and delete them. We wanted to have one outline piece and one piece that's going to be all of the little pieces inside. Now we can set each one of these accordingly. Both of these are going to be cut, so it's fine that they're in one layer. But if you wanted to have one be an engraving and one be cutting, remember that you are going to need to import it again and have it as a new layer. So you have two separate layers. So down here, we'll just come down to our parameters for this layer that we have here, and we're going to choose wood cutting. I'm going to go with the 0.3 inch because I have wood that is 1/4 of an inch. That's 0.25. Now the power is at 45. I think based on our test project, 45 is plenty. We could probably lower it a little bit, but since this is only my second time using the laser, I really just kind of want to see what it can do and go from there. Like I don't want to make too many adjustments before I actually give it a chance. So this is a good reminder to, one, make sure you have plenty of materials on hand. And two, we just did that material test. You can do the materials test on every type of material you have, and then you will have that one opportunity and be able to see what exactly your outcome is going to be with different settings, and you can adjust them accordingly. I will take time to do that at some point in time just so I have that reference for the different materials that I use. But as for today, we just want to go ahead and get our project going. So I have those settings set, and it's time to select that camera icon so that we can actually get this placed on our substrate and see everything in action. I've decided that our laser is going to be named Bryant the Beambox. So we want to go ahead and put in our substrate. In this case, I'm using a 1/4 inch thick plywood. I just cut it down on my table saw so it would be a square. It's about 12 inches. We're going to follow the same steps that we followed before, which is where we are going to come over to our screen and we are going to move that laser so that it's in line with our substrate. And then we're going to select the autofocus function, remembering that we need to put down that little peg first. You don't have to do this autofocus step on every single project. You just have to do it when you change the materials to something that's thicker or thinner. Once we've done that, we just click the little AF on our screen, and it's going to go ahead and do that adjustment. Once it shows that it's completed, we push that peg back up into its original position. And now we're ready to go. So I'm going to close the lid and we'll hop back over into Beam Studio to do that preview and align our design. When we click on this camera, we're going to get this error message, and it's going to say to abort your current task. Oops, I just clicked no. Click and drag across your canvas to scan it. We're going to click yes because we want to abort. It's only telling us that there's a project because we did the autofocus, not because there's actually another project going on. So if you are doing back-to-back projects on the same type of materials, you're not going to see a warning like that, but if you've changed materials, you may see that warning. It takes just a minute for this to scan in our full canvas space, and because of the size of the wood, I did make sure to really do like a big camera's focus area to scan in. So once that's done, we'll align our bunny cuts on there. Now our bunny cuts show that they were about like 7 inches tall. So this is going to take up quite a bit of space on this particular piece of wood because it's roughly 11 inches. All right, so now that we've got that in, we're going to go exit out of the preview mode by selecting our back arrow, go back to our little selection tool, and then just align our bunnies. I'm kind of putting them, as close as I think is okay to put them. I don't really want to waste too much material space. These are pretty big. I'm thinking this will look cute on my dining room table. So we already have our settings set for wood cutting at the 0.3 inches. We're not going to make any changes. We're just going to send this off to print or to cut. I keep saying print because we're so used to sublimation. All right, it says it's going to take about 12 minutes. So let's click that start button. Now I've gone ahead and sped this up to 20x speed since we don't really want to be sitting here for 12 minutes, but it's really cool to watch the laser in action and just see it go to work and how cool it is, honestly. I do want to mention that the Flux Beambox 2 laser has a variety of safety features such as sensors to detect fire hazard or potential fire inside of your laser. It will alert you and also automatically shut off if that happens. So it looks like our woodcut is just about done. Let's go ahead and see what our final result looks like. So once the laser powers down, we know that our project is complete. I'm going to go ahead and open up our cover here. It looks pretty good. Let's take out this background piece first. And I think I'll look at the cutout piece first. So there are some little flower pieces I'm going to want to have to grab. It looks like just one. Let's get those little extra pieces out of there as well. And then there's our cutout bunny. A little bit of charring on the back. That can be resolved by lowering the power just a little bit. This is how we'll stack them together. Honestly, I love this. I think it looks great. So we can always sand off any type of burn marks or paint over them. As I mentioned, lowering the power will probably help prevent that charring on the back of this. I was using the 0.3 inch, and this is actually about 0.2, 0.5 inches since it is 1/4 of an inch thick. So let's set that aside and get these pieces of debris out of our laser. We always want to make sure to get any of this stuff out. As I mentioned before, it's always a potential fire hazard. And I remind you again that the honeycomb piece here on the bottom does lift up so you can pick up additional small pieces that have fallen through on the bottom. Make sure that you are cleaning that fairly regularly. After every project is always a good move, but make sure that you're just doing it consistently regardless. I am trying to get this little piece out of there. Make sure we have all of them out of the way. Now I'd like to tackle another project to really show what this thing can do. So next up I'm going to do this laserable leather patch. Let's go ahead and get that in our work area. I'll kind of move that up near the top. There we go. You want to make sure to do the autofocus step. I've already done that, so I'm not going to do it again. You've seen it twice now, so I'll just keep reminding you that it does need to be done anytime you change a substrate that has like a different thickness level. So once we're happy with that, you could use double-sided tape as well to keep that in place, but we'll go ahead and close up our laser and hop back into Beam Studio. So back in Beam Studio, we are going to select that camera option again. There we go. And once this does its little homing process, we'll be able to click and drag on our canvas and do that preview scan. I probably scanned a bit more than I needed just then, but that's all right. You live and learn. You know, we're all learning new things today as our first day with our Flux Beambox 2 laser engraver and cutter. Now with leather, you have a couple of options. You could do cutting leather, you could do a deeper engrave, or you could do a surface engrave. This leather patch is actually designed that if you do a surface level engraving, it should be a different color, like it'll be gold. But I kind of want to do a deep engrave. I just want to see the results. You know, it's our first day. I want to test it out. I got this patch locally, so I can always get some more of them. Let's click on that back arrow to take us back to the main interface, and we're going to select our image tool. And I'm going to grab this logo for my HVAC guy. It's a little big because it's a t-shirt logo that I designed, so we're going to shrink that on down. Bring it up over our patch. We can definitely shrink it down more. Let's zoom in some. Whoops. The roller on my mouse, I'm used to it doing the up and down, but it does the zoom in and out. So let's just zoom this in a little bit more so you can see better. I'm going to make some adjustments in that image panel, that layer detail panel. So I'm going to turn off this gradient function, and I'm actually going to turn the threshold up. Let's go all the way up. Let's see what happens. This should give us like a deep engrave by doing this. I figure it's worth a try. I plan on playing around a bit more with leather. I'm going to order some like leather sheets, but let's just double check our design. I think the sizing is pretty good, but I need to rotate it just a little bit. I'm looking at the bottom line of the design and the stitching line and trying to make sure they're parallel. It was a very small rotation. Let's size it up just a little bit. I think that's good. Sometimes I wonder if we're our own worst enemy in terms of our perfectionist mindsets. All right, so we're going to go back to our layers panel, and I'm going to select our parameters and choose the leather engraving option. My first time doing leather, so I'm going to leave the settings that are in place. Let's just go ahead and click that Start Work button. It's going to calculate, and it's going to let us know how long this will take. 2 minutes. Nice, quick project. All right, we'll click the start button and send it over to Bryant the Beambox laser. Once again, I am speeding this up. It is a little bit harder to see the patch because of where it is inside of the laser and it being black, and inside is dark as well, but it'll be done in just a minute. Now, when you're doing leather, you are going to want to have a damp cloth, maybe a little bit of soap on it, so that you can really clean off any soot and dust off of that material. Just something to keep in mind whenever you're doing this type of item. Also acrylic, and then of course you want sanding blocks or sanding discs to use for wood. It's a little hard to tell, but I think it looks good. Let's go ahead and pop this open. All right, I'm just going to kind of rub this off a little bit so you can see it better. Like I said, you want to use a damp cloth. All right, I'm trying to just get a better angle for you guys so you can see, but it's got this nice deep etching. You can see the gold coming through in some of the shallower spots. We'll look at this closer in just a minute, but I want to get our next project set up. Our next project is going to be glass coasters. Trying to give you guys a good view. We're going to be doing the underside of it, so we're going to be mirroring the design in Beam Studio. I'm just going to kind of put this up in the corner. Once again, we want to do that autofocus step, so I'm going to move the laser over top of that. Push our little peg down. I think I need to adjust, yeah, there we go. Adjust this just a little bit. Tap that autofocus button. And once it's set, we'll go ahead and push that peg back up. Close the lid and we're ready to move back over to Beam Studio. I'm sure by now you guys are catching on to the steps. So we've already selected that camera icon. We are going to give this a second to do its homing process. When we see our camera, click and drag. I'm just going to do that top space since I know that I did put that coaster up there. The glass coaster is a little bit hard to see. This would probably be a good project for a jig, but we'll kind of see how this comes out and go from there. All right, so we're going to go back into our studio. Let's zoom in so you guys can see a little bit better, and so I can see better. I'm going to select my image tool and grab this Hoptimistic design from my shop of Love and Shiplap. Very large import because it is a t-shirt design. So let me just zoom out there and shrink this on down. Go ahead and center that on the coaster. There we go. All right, so I'm going to get that centered. I'm going to come over into that layer editing panel, and I want to flip this horizontally because we're doing this on the bottom of the coaster. So we want it to be mirrored. All right. Next, we're going to grab our rectangle tool, and I'm going to size a square. This is going to help us try and get this centered and sized accordingly. I want to enter in the measurements 3.5 inches by 3.5 inches because that is the measurements of my coaster. Oh, it's a little off. What am I missing? Oh, I put in 3, not 3.5. Whoops. Okay. So now I want to take that rectangle and I'm trying to line this up with the coaster and center my design in it and then kind of be able to rotate it accordingly. So I'm going to leave the gradient mode on for this particular design. And I want to select the crop tool and then just get rid of that dead space that's at the top of my design. So we'll bring that on down. You can then click apply and OK. So now I'm going to click and drag to get both my rectangle and my design and use my center alignment tools to make sure it's all centered. I want to grab that little rotational anchor at the top, and I want to adjust it so that the top line of the square that I made is lined up with that edge of the coaster that I can see. Top and bottom, it does look pretty good. Let's just try to make sure I've got this as centered as I possibly can. The coaster is 3.5 inches, by the way. That's why I did a 3.5 inch square. I'm also being mindful of the little rubber things. All right, then we can delete our rectangle once we are pretty sure we've got it centered. Those are the little rubber things I'm talking about, the little feet on the coaster, because we don't want our design lasered into that. I think that we're pretty good here. So with that layer selected, yeah, I don't want to make any changes. All right. We're going to go click that and then go back into our layers panel and come down to those parameter settings and choose that glass engraving setting. Now the defaults for this are set for like a drinking glass, which I think might be a little bit thicker. So I'm kind of wondering if maybe I should turn the power down. One of the things to know about working with glass is that you don't want to have the power too high or the speed too slow, because then you'll end up with too much concentration of heat in one place, which can lead the glass to shatter. So maybe I'll turn it down to 20 for the power. But at the same time, these coasters are thick. I mean, maybe not as thick as every type of glassware, but they are thick. They're not like thin, cheap coasters. I used to etch these with vinyl and etching cream. So I'm going to go back to the 30. We're just going to leave those default settings that it was. So I'm going to leave that, and we will go ahead and send this project over. We'll click that Start Work button. And once again, it's going to process the design and give us our timing for this. Okay, 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Let's click Start and head back over to Bryant. I definitely will work on the placement of where I put substrates for videos just so you guys can see them a little bit better. We have a new type of overhead mount. It does make it hard to see, but if you know my story, then you know that I used to do glass coasters and glasses and whiskey decanters and cigar humidor boxes, all great items that are truly timeless. I did them painstakingly with vinyl and etching cream, so I'm pretty excited to see what the result is for this. And honestly, just like that potential with this kind of item, to me is what's really exciting. I've talked many times about how lucrative the barware market is, especially when you're catering it to home bars. So I did speed this up, but it is done now. I have no idea if this is going to be hot or not, so I do have a heat glove on just in case. We'll go ahead and touch it. Oh no, it's not hot at all, so the glove is not necessary. It's a little dusty. We're going to need to wipe it off, but you can see how good that design looks. Let me try and get this out of the light for you guys. The battle between having enough lighting that you guys can see and making sure that we have enough lighting to operate things. All right, so trying to give you guys just like a better view. I think it'll be better when I put it on like a solid surface. Let's switch over to our desk and we can look at the 3 projects that we just completed. So here's a look at our 3 first projects with our Flux Beambox 2 laser. Now, as I said, these were items that I had, and I just wanted to really test out the capabilities of this machine to start getting some ideas going, and I have a lot of fun tutorials ahead. So first up, we had our glass coaster. I think that overall this looks fantastic. Our alignment is a little bit off, but I mentioned that this is probably an item that would be best done with a jig because it is so hard to see. You can see that it's not quite straight at the bottom. I'm not really stressed about that for now, but I will do a tutorial on how to create a jig for certain items that you can then use with your laser to help make sure you get perfectly centered options every single time. Jig is great for a lot of different items, not just something like this. Really anything that you are trying to have perfectly centered, it might be hard to see. So like I said, really I love the results of this. This design was distressed, maybe wasn't the best design for this, but I'm really happy. It doesn't feel like weird on the back or anything. Next up, we have our leather patch. And as I mentioned, this is supposed to be gold if you do a surface etching, and you can kind of see the gold coming through, but I love this deep etching look. I'm trying to like catch it for you guys on camera. I think it's like a very rustic vibe for leather, and that's what I like about it. But you can see the gold coming through on some of the edges where it was a softer, like more surface level engraving. Let me try and get this closer so you can see it. If you look kind of like along the roof and along the letters, you can see that gold coming through. So I will be getting some more of these patches so that I can go ahead and see what they look like with the two-tone color. Overall, I'm really happy with this, and I know that my HVAC guy is going to love this. He does a lot of favors for me to keep our home office cool. Last, we had our wood cutout, and I really love this. I have so many layered wood design ideas, and this is something that can be done with sublimation. You could choose to sublimate the top piece or the bottom piece. Both are potential options, and just kind of layer these designs together to give you a really in-depth look. I love that there was no charring on the top. I think that these look good. This was just 1/4 inch thick plywood, as I mentioned before. So yeah, I mean, I love this so much. I'm definitely really happy with the results that we got with this. I'm excited to try some other projects, and I'm just excited in general about all of the potential with this laser. I honestly cannot get over how much I love this idea. I'm going to be doing little home decor pieces like this that are layered like this on the regular. I think it'll be perfect for like my dining room table. In addition to doing flat items like this for cutting and engraving, you can also do a vast array of cylindrical objects, cups, 40-ounce tumblers, all of those things with the rotary chuck and the extension pocket. Now, I'm going to save that for another video because the setup process is a bit in depth and I want to make sure we go through it so you guys can do it successfully. But I am looking forward to showing you some different types of drinkware items or cylindrical objects in general that you can do. And don't forget, there's also the pass-through attachment there so that you can do pieces that are larger and feed them through your Flux Beambox 2 laser.
I know that was just a taste of what you can do with the Flux Beambox 2 laser engraver and cutter available through Johnson's Plastics Plus, but I hope we got you excited to see all of the upcoming tutorials of how we're going to use this piece of equipment and also use it in conjunction with sublimation and white toner to create some really cool project ideas that you might be able to use in your craft business. If you think you're ready to add something like this to your business, then check the video description for a link to this laser. And don't forget that if you purchase through Johnson's Plastics Plus, you can take advantage of Affirm financing to allow you to spread out that investment over some time and really start putting it to work for your business sooner rather than later. As always, thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe and download our Sub That Learning Library app, and we'll see you next time.